Hello, my name is Matthew, and I'm very excited that I finished reading Shadow Ticket, the new novel by Thomas Pynchon. And I was super excited because Thomas Pynchon, of course, um, is a huge novelist, author. Every time he has a new book comes out, it is an event, and um, I had pre-ordered this book. Came in just 2 days ago, and surprisingly, I didn't realize it's actually a rather short novel. It's actually less than 300 pages. There's Daphne. Um, I had the day off, and I read the book. And um, since this is a very new book, and um, people might be looking for recommendations or things like that. I want to try to um, give my impressions, but also be very careful with um, plot spoilers or things that might ruin the experience of reading the book as a new novel that had just come out. So I have to admit, initially, I had a lot of trepidation with maybe the beginning of the book. Um, and I'll say it's set in the 1930s, America, the Depression era, the Prohibition era. We start in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have our main character who is a private investigator, which is actually a rather a theme in Thomas Pynchon's later works, so Inherent Vice and Bleeding Edge, and now Shadow Ticket, where we have a private investigator that we're following with the style of detective fiction, that sort of feeling of like a mystery and investigation that we're trying to solve some sort of uh, crime or dilemma. In the case of Shadow Ticket, the inciting incident is a bomb going off, killing somebody, and um, starting to follow along these lines of who done it. And uh, it's set in the 1930s, and the characters are I can hear my nieces are outside. They're playing. Um, it's set in the 1930s, and it's in the style of the 1930s. So the book is written almost as if it was written in the 1930s. Um, all the characters sound very old timey. The writing of the dialogue is very old timey, and the writing of the narration feels not only old timey, but feels more akin to the writing that you might find in the 1930s, or maybe 40s if it was written a little bit later. But it's among that time period, which, as I was reading it, initially thinking, well, it kind of reads like a dime novel or a pulp novel or a radio drama or just something that's rather entertaining but unremarkable. So I began the book thinking, would I be interested in this story if it was not written with the name of Thomas Pynchon? And I was starting rather disappointed. Um, it's chaotic. It's wild. There's a lot of wordplay. It's funny. Um, And I had, I would say, a misapprehension because um, as the book went along, I found myself kind of falling in to the characters and the world, which is, I said it's a short novel, but it is compact and efficient. The world of the 1930s, set in Milwaukee, where um, we have union wars, we have prohibition, we have speakeasies, uh, we have the war going on in the world. We have Hitler, um, vaudeville and talkies and movies coming out and music, and um, it really hits on so many of the things that were important and notable about the time period, and it interweaves it in a really efficient way where we don't have to really stop and say, well, now we're in the Depression, or now we're in the Prohibition era. Um, it really kind of, Thomas Pynchon does a really good job of just examining the world that we're in. And I thought he did a really good job with that. Um, the moment that I had, the moment of realizing that uh, maybe I shouldn't be disappointed, and sort of something that reads like sort of cliched, where the characters sound like 1930s mobsters and kind of using cliches and sounding uh, very much like how I imagine mobsters sound, where the dialogue ends with, we're doing something bad, see, and uh, stuff like that. I found like realizing where this fits into um, two things. Where it fits into Thomas Pynchon's catalog, which I haven't read everything, but when I think about um, my favorite books by Thomas Pynchon, which I would say Mason and Dixon is my favorite book by his. Inherent Vice, I think, might be my second. Um, but uh, for Mason and Dixon, it's set in the, I think, 18th century, around that time period, and it's written in that style and in that world. And for Inherent Vice is another one of his private detective novels, set, I believe, in the 1960s. Um, Again, the style of the writing is um, like psychedelic and gonzo and wild. And this book in America, in the 1930s, it reads like a 1930s detective novel. And um, put it making those connections really made the book um, allow me making those connections made me realize the power of the author to like um, set his sights on a style, on a time period, and then engross himself into it, which I find incredible. Um, it's a work of imagination and research and investigation to create a world that feels uh, not just believable, but as if it could have been written in that time period and still be believable. Um, the other thing that I love about this book, which took me a moment, again, But we have a private investigator. His name is Hicks. I'm being vague because I really don't want to spoil any as little as I can about the book. But and he gets himself, this guy Hicks, gets roped into this many storylines, many plot points, and mysteries, and characters, and intrigue, and suspense, and all this stuff. And it's all very convoluted and all very confusing. As the reader, you're reading it and thinking like, well, there's so many different storylines going on. It's almost all this wild stuff, fantastical things, supernatural things, and it feels like we're not being able to follow any normal logical thread. And it turns out it's one of my favorite genres to be entertained by. Mostly with, most notably with movies. So, The Big Lebowski, Burn After Reading. I think those are both by the Coen brothers. Inherent Vice, the movie by Paul Thomas Anderson, which is an adaptation of Pynchon's other novel, where you have a character that is just way in over their head, stuck in the middle of a whirlwind of intrigue and suspense and mystery and crime. And for whatever reason, either they're befuddled or drunken or high or mistaken, or just the way that the world works, where there's always all sorts of crazy things happening, and you're not able to put together all the points. And this book, Shadow Ticket, I feel like is a really great companion to that style of storytelling. I think if this was made into a movie, I think it would be much more amenable to being very entertaining and funny. I'm having a hard time thinking about other novels that have that similar predicament that I was talking about. But Inherent Vice and The Big Lebowski, Burn After Reading, I find so entertaining. It's a really great counterpoint to the murder mystery genre of the expert, of the masterful detective that can figure everything out. Instead, you have a main character that can figure nothing out, and I love that. Um, there were some details in this book that I especially appreciated, and um, I'll say X-ray machines. So there's a moment. I don't think I'm really spoiling anything, but a package delivered by elves with a bomb given to Hicks, and he runs to a shoe store. It was his first reaction, and I'm reading it thinking, why is he going to a shoe store? And he gets there, and they have X-ray machines. And I had read about this. I had already known about this, but had forgotten in the moment. But at this time period, um, with all these new like technological advancements, um, X-rays, and trying to figure out what you do with them, in Chicago or in the Midwest, they had shoe stores that had X-ray machines, and the idea was that you'd put your foot in this machine and it could figure out exactly what kind of shoe you should wear uh, by the size and X-raying your foot exactly, not realizing the repercussions of just blasting out X-rays. um, and either later on or earlier, I can't remember, but um, a main plot point is the cheese wars, and we have in this book the Al Capone of cheese, and uh, we have a new radioactive cheese that's invented, and we get this really great kind of historical description of cheese and how it's important. And I had read about this too years ago. I had read this like, fascinating article, and I was super interested in it because it talked about the cheese wars that were going on maybe 10, 15 years ago, where in Wisconsin, they were having these world cheese contests, and uh, there was debate, there was contention about whether or not Wisconsin cheesemakers could win an award for making a really great, winning an award for the like Parmigiano Reggiano. And from Italy's perspective, Parmigiano Reggiano can only be made in Parma. That's what it is. It's made in Parma. It has like an official like seal and stamp. To be this cheese, it needs to be made from Parma. And Wisconsin's argument was, well, no, we can make the same exact cheese. We can chemically make the same exact thing that perhaps tastes even better than your cheese. And their argument is, well, no, if whatever you're making, it cannot be Parmigiano Reggiano if it's not from Parma. And this is a really fascinating debate that I read a lot about. I think it's really interesting, and it came up in this book. Um, as far as recommending the book, I would recommend it if you've read Thomas Pynchon and you're a fan. I would like to say that I feel like it is one of the most approachable books by Pynchon, but I feel like if you read it as your first book for Pynchon, you might think, well, what's the big deal? Not understanding the stylistic exercises that are going on throughout all of his different books. I'm not really quite sure what is the best book to recommend by Pynchon. Um, the books that I've read all kind of are stylistically so different. Mason and Dixon is my favorite of his books. Gravity's Rainbow is known to be has that notoriety of being one of the most difficult novels that you can read in the 20th century. I don't quite see it, but a little bit. Um, but I really enjoyed it, and um, I read it quite quickly. I felt like it was very, very well written. It's very well paced. The characters read almost like a comic book series where people aren't really introduced um, politely. It's almost as if you should already know who all these people are. It really feels like a slice of a story. Um, you just hit the ground running, and it takes some time. It took me some time, but there's a point where you have your foot on, you have your feet on the ground, and you can enjoy kind of like a wild romp. Um, I wouldn't say it's his best book that I've read, but I did really have a fun time with it, and I felt like the length was very appropriate. So those are some of my thoughts on A Shadow Ticket by Thomas Pynchon. I have a light coming in. Um, if you've read it already, please let me know. Um, Otherwise, I wanted to give a modest recommendation. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and thank you, and take care.